He didn't become a millionaire the day the number appeared on the screen. That moment came much later. The real beginning happened years earlier, on an ordinary night, when he sat alone in a quiet room, staring at a ceiling that felt heavier than it should. He was exhausted, not from working too little, but from working without direction. Money came in and disappeared just as fast. Progress felt invisible, and an uncomfortable thought crept in, sharp and unavoidable. If effort alone created wealth, why did he still feel trapped? In that silence, another realization surfaced, one that would slowly reshape everything. Money doesn't respond to desire, it responds to identity. At that stage of his life, he lived in constant comparison. Other people seemed to move faster, earn more, build more. He told himself he was just taking a different path, but deep down, he felt behind. Bills were paid, but barely. Savings existed, but never grew. Every financial decision was reactive, driven by urgency or emotion. He wasn't reckless, yet he wasn't intentional either. He lived in a gray zone between responsibility and avoidance, convincing himself that stability was enough, while secretly craving freedom. What he didn't understand then was that his mindset was still rooted in survival. He measured success by short-term relief instead of long-term control. When stress appeared, he sought comfort. When uncertainty showed up, he delayed decisions. And every delay quietly reinforced an identity that saw money as something to manage around life, not something to lead with clarity. He didn't realize that those moments, the small hesitations, the rationalizations, were already shaping the financial ceiling of his future. There were nights when anxiety made rest impossible. Not traumatic panic, but a dull, persistent tension. He would scroll endlessly, absorbing other people's milestones, convincing himself that motivation would come later, tomorrow, next year, after things felt safer. But safety never arrived, because it was always outsourced to circumstances. And slowly, a dangerous belief formed, that wealth was reserved for people who thought differently, acted earlier, or had advantages he didn't. But what happened next didn't look impressive from the outside. There was no sudden idea, no breakthrough opportunity. Instead, there was a quiet shift in how he interpreted responsibility. One evening, reviewing his finances without distraction, he noticed something unsettling. His biggest obstacle wasn't income. It was an opportunity. It was inconsistency. Not in action, but in identity. He behaved like someone who wanted wealth, but thought like someone afraid to outgrow his current life. That realization was uncomfortable. It forced him to confront habits he had defended for years. Spending that wasn't destructive, but unnecessary. Decisions postponed not because of lack of knowledge, but because of emotional resistance. He began to see how often he chose familiarity over growth. And slowly, he understood something most people never pause long enough to admit. His mindset wasn't the unconventional yet. It was conventional, safe, and capped. If you're still with this story right now, take a moment. If this internal conflict feels familiar, that quiet tension between wanting more and protecting comfort, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Not as a gesture, but as a decision to stay present for the kind of thinking that actually changes trajectories. The shift that followed wasn't aggressive. It was disciplined. He stopped asking how to make more money and started asking who he needed to become to deserve managing more. He restructured his days, not for productivity, but for consistency. He learned to delay gratification without resentment, to sit with boredom, to make decisions that didn't feel rewarding immediately, but felt aligned. And slowly, his financial behavior stopped being emotional and started becoming intentional. What followed challenged everything he believed about success. Growth wasn't loud. It wasn't fast. It was repetitive. There were months where nothing visible changed. No dramatic jumps. No applause. But internally, something stabilized. He trusted himself more. He stopped negotiating with impulses. He became someone who followed through, even when no one was watching. There was one realization he only fully understood much later. Wealth wasn't built by extraordinary moves, but by ordinary decisions executed without self-betrayal. His mindset became unconventional, not because it was extreme, but because it was grounded. Long-term over short-term. Identity over outcomes. Control over comfort. The first million didn't arrive as a celebration. It arrived quietly, almost anticlimactically. By then, the number mattered less than the person who had built it. The anxiety that once followed money was gone. In its place was calm, clarity, and restraint. He no longer needed to prove anything. He understood that the real asset wasn't the money. It was the mindset that made it inevitable. Looking back, he realized freedom didn't come from earning more. It came from thinking differently for long enough that his actions had no choice but to follow. And the question he now asked himself wasn't how to grow faster, but how to protect the identity that got him there. If this story resonated with you, if you feel that internal shift beginning, you can continue this journey by exploring the psychological materials mentioned in the description and comments, including how to develop a millionaire mindset, not as a shortcut, but as a way to deepen the discipline and clarity you're already building. And if this channel aligns with the way you want to think about money and identity, like the video and subscribe, quietly, intentionally, as part of the path you're choosing. Because the moment he changed how he thought about money, he changed who he was becoming.